Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About Lego. Again, this week, helping me out as a guest host is Dana, TroublesBricking. Obviously a good choice for this video because he has every single classic space set. One of the lucky few. I don't think there's that many people that have every one of them in the condition that you do.
I can probably count on one hand people I know who have all of them as well, and most of them are outside of the United States.
Yeah, I can see that. So for tonight's lineup, well, what I'm going to do is I've compiled multiple slides so that had multiple sets because there's so many little ones. So we're going to try to run through them. We're not going to pick out every little detail about every set, but I'm going to let Dana do as much talking as possible because he's actually has them. He has built all of them and he has a photo proof. So, you know, I'd like to get into it. And if we have time, we'll show his photo at the end, showing all of the classic space sets in one photo, which is pretty impressive. So we've got a few people in the comments. Hello, everyone. Nico68 is saying, I have all of the LOL. I have all original set. The instructions also, it was with my uncle. So apparently someone in the family had them, right? That's awesome. And I had said that was pretty cool. Steven is saying he was too young to have all the classic space, but his much older cousin had some of the sets that he could play with as a kid. That's cool. Steve is in here, classic space. He's in our age group, so he's probably got a few. Andrew Alburn is ready to talk about this. We got a couple hellos. Minifig collector, hello, and about bricks, hello. Yep. So
zoom in there too.
Dana, do you have anything to add before we jump into these lovely run of classic blocky ships? And
this is going to take some time, so strap in and get ready.
Yeah, we will try to move through them quickly, so that we don't bore everybody to death. That's the last thing I want to do. But spending the time that I did yesterday putting all this together so that we could collectively talk about every set, I really looked into, you know, the structure, the bricks that were used, the style of building is different.
Oh,
there's also something else that I noticed is as they introduced the yellow figure, the vehicles changed to gray.
Yeah, there is definite segments.
Yeah, it's almost like they were subconsciously doing different factions with different building styles and lenses, you know, like they did to follow with Blacktron, Mtron, and so on and so forth, right?
It's almost like, because we did get those additional sub themes. I mean, we really didn't even thought about that at that time because from 78 to 87, it was just space.
Yeah,
we didn't think about, you know, different things. But the reality is, you're right. As the years changed, little nuances, you know, whether they added in a different color figure, they changed the canopy colors, they changed, you know, the physical structure colors. There was usually always a base, but then there wasn't a base, there became a big ship. And, you know, so there was different changes throughout the production cycle. But, you know, when we look at it as one theme, it's just all classic space, but there's definitely little variations throughout each.
Something else too that I noticed as I was running through these and really looking at them in detail, 87, when they did the changeover from classic space to Futron,
right?
The Futron style was ending classic space. And then it literally jumped in, they put a zipper on the jacket, and it was Futron then.
Well, even and if we look at the classic space sets from 87, and then you look at the Futron sets, if you just swap the figures,
it's the match made in heaven.
I mean, they just did this. I mean,
if they had put
classic space figures in Futron, the last era, you know, you would have never noticed any difference. Or if they had done Futron 1 year earlier, those sets just look like Futron sets. So it was definitely just merged together.
And
we'll get there. We'll get there in those slides.
Are you ready to jump into this then?
Let's go. Let's rock and roll. Yep.
All right. So to let everybody know, I did go year by year. Some of them are, in the following year slide. They're not labeled by year, but I did start at the beginning. So we are starting with the first sets and moving all the way up through 87.
Yeah.
So our first one.
All right. So the beauty about, so the first thing we got to talk about is all the ground vehicles you'll notice are going to be gray.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, everybody in this first few years, everybody's red and white as far as spacemen go.
Yep.
And then the spaceships are all that classic trans yellow, blue, gray design that we all know and love. And you get the black and yellow stripes to signify the different ranks on the ships. This is where it begins. All right, how do you want to do this? Let's see. We got to talk about.
Well, I would say the highlight point of this here is the 487 Space Cruiser. I want to say that that's the mid-range version of the new Galaxy Explorer that breaks down into two other models.
Correct.
Isn't that the middle one?
Correct. That would be the 924. Yeah, that's the 924, the middleized version. For me, the 487 is the quintessential mid-range set, because you got a little rover, you got play features on this one. The back swings open. You can, so you can put in the cargo. The lid flops open so that you can put in multiple figures inside. This whole set just gave you so much play feature and fun for the right price range for any kid. In hindsight, I wish that when I was a kid that I'd gotten multiple copies of this, because this was such a great set. I mean, it was
like the first one. It was like the first major spaceship.
Right. And everything, everything after that qualifies into that price range just models off of this as far as giving you what you want for that mid-range set, which is just fantastic. Yeah. The big thing for me in 493, there's so much Easter egg and knowledge in this set in general. The fact that in the US, you built craters. So you can see on this one, there's little built craters.
Yeah.
As opposed to in the European version, you got a crater plate because it came out a year later, and I guess there's a different number for it actually for
the European versions at the very beginning, they all had different numbers.
Yeah, different versions. So, but the European version had a crater plate versus a 32 by 32 plate that you added craters to, which is fun and interesting. The computer screens on this one, you got tons of them. You got the inverted computer slopes, which were like, that was bragging rights through all of Galaxy Space. If you got those inverted computer screens, they were awesome. Yeah. And then the big 1 by 6 by 5 or 1 by 5 by 6 panel with the astronaut on. You got that in this one, and we also get in the Alpha 1. We get a different one.
Was that one printed?
Yes, it's printed, and it is a pricey piece.
I bet that piece is pretty costly.
Yeah, it starts out in poor condition at about $20 and goes up from there. Those radar antennas in old light gray, those start at 15 and will go up to 50 depending on the condition they're in. So those again are also pricey, and the fact that there are 2 of them in this set is insane. And my favorite little nod is in the first Lego movie. This set has a cameo when they're going through the different areas, and you see the guys in there. It's in the Lego movie, which is awesome.
I'll have to rewatch the Lego movie and see if I can pick it out.
Because they even have the brick built craters in the scene, so it's cool.
Which is super cool. I mean, I love the look, the simplicity of these is great. My only thing is my only issue with all the classic space and space beyond that is all the bases are like wide open on one side.
Exactly.
It's like you never can take off the air tank or the helmet.
Well, I mean, as we go through this, we get, a chair, with a rocket on the back of it. It's not designed to be realistic. It was
No, I know that. I know. I'm aware. But like the more you know about space and the radiation that you actually get from the sun or solar wind, is like this is all impossible. All of it.
Well, and my favorite part about this set is that you get these transparent slopes that are the chair backs, and you have to take off their air tanks for them to sit down.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is that you don't, and there's no wall.
But we're splitting hairs here. We're splitting
exactly.
Right?
It was the late 70s, early 80s. You just rolled with it.
Yeah, this was when like synth wave music was like the thing, right? The classic space sound.
Yeah. Oh, and before we move past on this one, the rovers, that they have the little air tanks on the front of them in old light gray, which is actually, it's funny because even though they're old light gray, they look good with new gray.
They do,
because they're not quite, because it's a different type of plastic to begin with, so it doesn't have the same age problems as old gray does. But again, those air tanks sitting on the front of a rover is classic, quintessential classic space history right there.
Yeah, I ordered 3 of the light gray air tanks, one to complete my little rainbow of spacemen.
Yep.
And the other 2, and they were all in very good condition. What I got, and I mean, it's very hard to distinguish between the 2 grays.
Yeah,
to be honest with you,
it is. Thankfully.
All right.
For me, the Alpha One. For me, the Alpha One rocket base is probably the first set that stands out in my memory of seeing and going, oh, this is cool. I want this, because we were still dealing with the love of the Apollo program, because the rocket kind of had that Apollo feel to it.
It does.
I'm also a big fan of the hoses. Those old style hoses.
That's what I like about it.
Are fantastic. And again, all that trans yellow, it's just a great set. And then the other thing that also is a standout for me in this set is the use of the sink handles on this set.
I'm trying to see.
If you see where he's using the wrench, and it's where there's little faucets. The faucet piece is used in these as to being a place where they would hook up the air. Or
that's nice.
From the rover, the hoses from the rover.
Oh yeah.
So it stands out as just an awesome set, just all the way around. So much fun. The fact that the gangstry pulls away for the rocket to go off, the little top satellite thing is designed like it's, launching it into orbit or whatever. It is the Alpha One rocket base is a quintessential staple. It's an icon as far as this era goes.
And it comes with the moon base plate.
And it comes with a crater plate. And that was that was the first official crater plate set, along with when they did the command center reissue. I will say that the space shuttle, or in the rest of the world it was referred to as the 2-seater space shuttle or something like that. Such a weird set.
It is weird. Yeah, it is weird.
I mean, they give, and the funny thing is that we see this style of 2 pilots in something in later themes. So it's not like they did it once and they never did it again. We got it again in Blacktron as well, and Blacktron 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But again, here we are. We didn't, the first in '78 we didn't have any spaceships, which is all other than canopied in the 924. But this one, it's open, it's exposed. He's just out there putzing around. And there's a spare seat for a co-pilot.
So soaking up radiation.
Yeah,
solar wind.
Yeah. Now the mobile ground transport. This is another one of those sets that's got a piece in it that is coveted and rare. It's those trans clear radar dishes with the handles on them.
Those are the classic gray shield that came out in the Lion Knight's twin arm launcher.
Correct. And if I'm not mistaken,
but they're clear.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I know the red ones came in a couple of different sets, but I'm pretty sure this is the only set that they.
I didn't even know that piece actually was a piece until I put these slides together yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was looking. I was like, holy crap, that's a clear shield.
Yeah. Yep. I'm pretty sure it's the only set that it came in, and because at that time those things were still, the transparent pieces could be brittle from time to time. You will find people with cracked ones or just the broken handle or something like that. So those are another one of those pieces on Bricklink that go for pretty good money.
Yeah,
in good condition.
I can imagine.
Yep.
I can imagine. I remember all the classic space using those classic car tires.
Yes.
The ones with the little red knobs with the little metal bar through them. You could
Yep.
never take that apart. You could just put the rubber on, and that was it. And they were done.
Well, you can take them apart if you give it a little pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but then you need like needle nose pliers and like all kinds of other things to get it back together. And
it wasn't designed to be taken apart. But so a slight segue. When I started getting back into Lego and I was doing bulk sorts, and that's how I got my whole thing of going through and going back and collecting all the classic space sets. One of the things that just drove me nuts was I was finding kids who were taking minifigure legs and putting them on different hips and taking the arms off and swapping the hands. And I was like, who did that? Why would you do that? But some kids didn't covet the figures in their pristine, natural way. They had to swap things around, which is funny now because now I swap out red hands on a blue figure.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that. I noticed that about your profile. You got this blue space guy with red hands everywhere.
But or actually, it's a red spaceman with blue hands. But yeah,
yeah.
Which is a running joke, which is a separate story for a different time. But the fact that you could take certain things apart never even clicked in my head. It's like you put those wheels on, the tires on the wheels, and you left them. You didn't take them off.
No, I never did.
Yeah, but people did, and they utilized them for different things and stuff like that. So, which is
something else too that I noticed about these is there's so many cool parts in gray with the classic logo printed on them.
Yes,
in gray. Yeah. Now you can also get them in blue, but there's like 1x2 bricks with it printed on there. Yeah. Obviously the slope is a given.
Yeah.
But the more and more I looked through these, I was like, dang, there's another one of those.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of cool ways to use the classic printed pieces in labeling your vehicles or base or whatever. And then it seems like every base that comes out has got the inverted slope printed screens.
Yep. And those were gold. Those
were, yeah. And I want to say that there was a couple of airplanes or the old airports, like the old yellow, the first yellow airport. I don't know if you remember that one. I'm sure you probably do.
Vaguely.
I had that one as a kid, and I want to say that it had inverted screens in it in the tower, but they were the white brick.
Yeah, which we even get some white ones later on in Classic Space as well.
So, Galaxy Explorer, the original.
There she is, a beauty.
It is.
They for a series to come out so strong with a set like this that became a staple and is still a staple today. I mean, the fact that they reissued it as a 10, slapping in an icons 1009 or 497 on it to give us the new one, it is a testament to how much beloved this set is over the years. I mean, there are adults in their 40s and 50s who would be like, "Yep, just give it to me. That's all I want. If I can go back and get the 497, that's all I'd want to go back and get," because it was bragging rights if you had one, and if you didn't have one, you wanted one, and that's
I mean, too. In comparison, now we're now in 79. Okay, so this is a 79 release.
Yep.
Compared to what had already released, this thing was massive.
Oh yeah.
As a child, as a kid, as an 8-year-old, you had to have both hands under this ship to move it around.
Yeah.
Just because it was so big.
And we very rarely it takes a couple more years before we get a set this size again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'll see as we go through that this was, a crowning joy early on, and that they didn't really strike gold again for years on this type of style of ship. So it stayed that icon for a long time in everybody's mind. So
and they really did a good job redoing it for the 90th anniversary.
Oh, Very much so. Very
You
much
know,
so.
I enjoyed that build thoroughly. I bought 3 so I could build all 3 ships. I've
Yep.
got 2 of them sitting right back over here. The big one is over here behind my computer on the other side of the table.
Yep.
But I had to build all 3. I have all 3. Each one of them was a pleasure to build. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I've got a whole tub of brand new classic space parts that I can build whatever I want with.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's pretty exciting too. So yeah, so we got the Galaxy Explorer in Moonbase, depending on which part of the world you live in,
Yep.
right? And then you got a couple of these weird little tiny $2, $3 sets, little
And
buggies.
let me tell you, I mean, by today's standards, these would be a poly bag. I mean,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme. And the funny thing is that today's poly bags would be twice as many or triple the amount of parts
Yeah.
For the poly bag. Even
Yeah,
with
I mean, these are like hitting that 20 part range.
They are literally like, I'd say 20 to 24 pieces a piece.
Mm-hmm.
And that's including counting the minifigure as 5 pieces itself. Because, you know, technically, you know, helmet, head, air tank, torso, legs, that's 5 pieces. And that counted in the 20 pieces, because the space scooter on top, which is funny, it's like 20 pieces with the figure. I built a micro scale version for my baby space that has twice as many pieces in it, because I had to make parts out of parts, because you needed to make things to look and feel the right way, but without using these bigger pieces that were available. And it's just kind of funny, because by today's standards, you would never find a set of something that small built with 15 pieces. It would require
it almost wouldn't seem worth it as far as the production cost,
right?
And the bag that it would go in, the printing of the bag or the box that it was going in, plus shipping and moving it. I mean, really, did they make anything off of those little guys?
Well, the funny thing is like you were saying, at that time, that set would have been $2.50, $3.
Yeah.
And by today's standards, that would be a minimum $5 to $7 set. Yeah, even with those few amount of pieces. I mean, for that range, that scale.
I mean, you get more pieces in the extras poly bags now.
Right, exactly. So it's
for free.
But at the same time, I wish they still did these like this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because and the sheer number of them. I mean, they'll do poly bags now where you'll get, you know, like a Star Wars theme or a Ninjago theme, and they'll kick out 1 or 2 poly bags of things. But it's not like this. This was this was a little adventure in a box. I mean, you may only been able to build 1 or 2 little alternate variations, but you could explore the living room with that little rover and have a good day, you know, as a kid, or fly through the kitchen with that little cruiser.
Yeah,
we really don't see this type of build and marketing in today's age.
So. Yeah, no, I agree. On 886, I think it's a nice touch, because that's the set that most people remember as the gray air tanks hanging off the front of it.
Yep.
Okay, and that's the most purchased and sought after one, because it's a small one, right? Yep. Even though the one 2 years prior had the same scenario set up on it. The funny thing about it is that, you know, as you said, all the spacemen were red and white almost until like 81, 82, somewhere around in there, I think.
Yeah, I think it's 82 we get the yellows.
Yeah, and it came with the gray air tanks, right? So it didn't match any of the figs. We never got a gray torso until the CMF in like 2014.
Yeah.
You know, which was like the little rocket kid or whatever it was.
And it was an Easter egg, basically, because he was wearing a rocket suit. So I mean, like, they just kind of gave him that torso as kind of like a little here you go.
That was, I mean, yeah, because it was completely covered in the CMF with the cover. I mean, you opened it up and you're like, wait a minute, this has got a print on it.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
And I always wonder, and I almost feel it's Matthew Asherton, who's the one who's been filtering us these classic space nods, or some of the other Lego designers who were AFOLs. is how we're getting those. I really think it's the kids of the 80s who are now Lego designers who are like, hey, we're going to throw this little Johnny Thunder reference in. Hey, we're going to throw this classic Lion Castle reference in. Here's a classic space reference. I think it's those children of the 80s who are now official designers.
Definitely.
That are feeding us this stuff. So it's great.
Yeah, it is very cool. All right. So this one is the single man.
Yep. The 918, which was not available in the US. This was only available in Europe, and I think Canada got it too. Because I think when I was getting to get mine, I had to get some pieces from Canada because they just, US sellers didn't have them, because unless you got it from overseas, US sellers didn't have the parts for them. So, and this also has that 4x6 trans-yellow canopy on top, or that trans-yellow plate.
Mm-hmm.
Only set that came in.
That's crazy.
This is the only set that part came in, and so it is.
Well, I assume the LL918 part too.
Correct. So the
1x6? 1x6 or 1x4?
And this one's a 1x4. The new ones are 1x6s. The old ones were 1x4s. So the LL918 and that canopy, or that plate, and then also the front slope piece was only in a few sets as well. And it's got variations depending on what year it came out in as well.
Is that one piece in the front?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that the one that's notched in the back and has the side notches, or is that all one piece?
It's the same piece that is the trans-yellow windshield, but just in solid blue.
Oh yeah, I thought you were talking about the gray plate.
Oh no. Those are all just the standard ones. Well, ironically,
the 1x3x6 slope with the print is pretty gnarly.
Yeah, but I will point out that in these earlier sets, that 1x2 plate in the very, very front with the forks out to look like guns or whatever it's going to be. Yeah. There's two variations on that piece in classic sets. There's one where the rods are in the middle, and then there's another variation where they're down low. And it depends
I think the newer version is the ones where they're down low.
Correct.
Because I've never even seen one where they're in the center.
Yep. And it's interesting because there are some other pieces that we'll mention in here as we go through, that they were specifically done the way they were done, and that when they did change them, you couldn't do what you could do with them. So we'll talk about that. As far as the other two sets in here, the little shovel buggy is just a classic for me. I just think it's just funny. It's cute. It's got a computer screen in the back, which you can't see because he's sitting in front of it. And then I always loved the 684, the mineral detector, because I just love those dishes and having that whole, he's out there with a big giant radar, or metal detector looking for minerals. Which just
the only way that mineral detector is cool is the fact that it was an actual set from the late 70s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to put that together now, you would say, oh my God, this is horrible. I need to redo this.
Absolutely. Well, actually, a lot of these sets, as we go through them, if you think about it by today's standards, are horrible.
It's funny.
But they were iconic at the time. They were things that stood out to you in the catalogs, and you're like, oh, I gotta have that. Why? I don't know, because I gotta have it.
I know. That's the way a lot of these are.
Yeah.
Here, let's jump into this one. The Beta 1 command base.
Oh, again, the Beta 1 command base, iconic for multiple reasons. You got that big printed tile again, or it's actually a brick. It's not even a tile. It's a big printed brick. Tons of more printed pieces, computer screens and such. We get a ship, a flyer, a rover, and a base, and a monorail, even though it might not be powered. Just so much fun. And probably the one sought after piece after that big printed rocket piece in this one, which harkens us back to the Alpha 1 rocket base, because it's basically what's showing us, is that classic space flag.
That's printed too.
No, it's a sticker.
It's a sticker.
Well,
and shoot, I could print some of those.
You could. And actually, I've got my set, I have a aftermarket sticker, because finding that piece with the sticker in good condition, and that some kid hasn't accidentally put it on upside down, or he only put it on one side and the other side's all ripped up. Those are rare in good condition.
I'm sure.
There, but at the same time, though, it's funny because you see when most people think about that flag, they think, oh, it's probably the same color blue as the blue in the Lego pieces, but it's actually a dark blue. And it's actually
on the sticker.
Yeah, so it's not quite the color that most people think it is. They would think that, oh, it's probably the same color as the blue figures and stuff like that. No, it's a dark navy blue, which is awesome.
What I like about the Beta 1 is I can see clearly on the top of the roof there is the 1x2 brick blue with the printed Classic Space logo.
Yep. And
so
actually,
that's a nice piece.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think you can't tell, but there should be another one of those bricks underneath the radar dish, if I'm not mistaken.
There could be.
I might be mistaken, though. I'm trying to look at mine. No, I think I'm just confusing it. But yeah, and again, we got new chairs in this one, because they are the more modern chair that you would normally find for Lego, for minifigures. However, you still needed to take the air tanks off, and we'll cover where they introduce a chair that you don't have to take the air tanks as we get further on. The Mobile Lab, again, another weird set by today's standards, because the way the wheels are, you think, all right, you've raised you've given the lab a lift, but you still have little tires. So what's the point of having a lift?
Right.
It's kind of funny. But the X1 patrol craft, the 6861, that was my first Classic Space set that I ever got as a kid. It has a special place in my heart. It always will. And anytime I build something that's, if somebody says, hey, build something off the fly, for whatever reason, it always winds up resembling the X1.
That's cool.
It's just, it's my place in history of where
I love how the cover of the instructions is the ship going away from you.
Yes. Well,
it's the only one that I've noticed that's like that.
It is the only one that's like that. And because I think they wanted to show off those cool,
the way that the engines were. Yeah.
The engine thrusters. And because it's funny, because you don't see the fact there's a 2x3 slope with the Classic Space logo on it. But again, we're also still looking at, he's got a windshield that he can see over, and he's exposed space. So,
well, that's classic Lego.
Exactly.
We do have one interesting comment here in the comments. Minifig collector, and maybe you can help us out here with this. He says, I always thought that the Alpha 1 and Beta 1 were part of one complex.
So while not officially, you will see them photographed that way, because the way the crater plates are, you can take all three of the original bases in that, 78 to 80, and you can fit them all together to make one giant crater, and that they're all sitting inside that crater.
Okay, so we're talking about Space Command Center, I would say would probably go, right?
And then the Alpha 1.
The Alpha 1 would go.
And then
Beta
they will create a nice big crater among the four of them.
Nice. And they kind of all sit in there, and it's all within walking distance of the next building.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It looks like on the Beta 1 on the outside here, it almost looks like that's flush with the edge of the plate. So if you had another one that was flush with the edge of the plate, you could set the two plates side by side.
Right. And they could be back to back.
That would be one long strip, which would be pretty accurate to the way things are actually built, which is kind of cool. All right, cool. Moving on. Some more little space sets.
Again, I wish that Lego did this, where we would get all these little tiny space sets. I mean, they kind of do that with some of the lines, but it doesn't still have the same feel, because and granted, inflation, but for $20, you could have had, three of these sets, almost four of them, and you could have an entire day of fun building and playing and doing whatever you want to do.
Oh yeah. What about that 6x6 trans yellow plate in 6927. I bet that's an expensive piece.
That's it. I think they actually had that piece in a couple of sets, but it is a little more. It is on the rare side. Not as rare as the one that came in the 918, but it is
4x6. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe they did only no. It does come in a couple other sets. But if you notice, this is also in the 6927. We get trans dark blue.
Yep.
And the spaceships are now starting to add in white.
Yeah, it's
just being gray.
And again, 9842 space shuttlecraft.
Yeah.
You get the 2x3 slope white with the classic space logo printed on it.
Correct. So now we're starting to see some color variations.
It looks like it's in the space probe launcher too. There on the front. I would assume that's probably printed. You can't see it, but I assume it is. Those came out in the same year, so
it is printed. And I was trying to make sure it wasn't a different piece, because there's another piece that will come up later with a slope on it that's similar. But no, that is just a regular 2x3 that is printed like that. One of the things I want to point out in these sets is that if you look on the Space Digger, he's got those red trans 1x1s in the front, and they're held on by those little, I forget what the technical term is, but it's basically a stud on each side that comes off of a 1x1 brick.
It's a modified plate.
Yeah, it's a modified plate. This is the first version of that plate, because when you attach that plate on the side like that, it becomes flush with whatever it's next to.
I see that now.
And because the ring on that,
it must have been a thinner bulk ring.
It is a thinner ring.
Yeah.
The newer versions, it pops it out a half plate.
Yeah.
So it's a different. So you can't recreate that exact same look with the newer version, because it winds up pushing it out.
Well, we're splitting hairs.
I know.
You could throw a couple of brand new brackets across that and flush that out, no problem.
Exactly. But to achieve the same look and feel, it is definitely a part from that time that it doesn't have the same function today as it did then. Yeah. The other thing is that at that point in time, the jumper plates were also flat. There was no lips on the side of them, so they were a little more difficult to get off. And probably that's why most of them have teeth marks on them.
Yeah, very, very much a pain to get off.
Yep.
I love how they're still putting the computer screens behind the air tanks on some of these. That's
always a weird thing. Always a weird thing.
Note too that we're up past 79 and we are still red and white only. Correct.
And one other thing about this about the all-terrain vehicle is there is it's an inverted wedge. So it's a 2x2 brick, and it's so if you think about like a corner piece that's like this, but it's inward.
Well, that's kind of odd.
And this is the only set that it came in white.
Huh.
It's coming grays, both colored old grays it came in, but this is the only set that it came in white. And it's one of those, again, rare, uncommon pieces. It's also the first time we got white pieces with black grid printing on them as well. So that was a newer piece for that time and era.
We've got a great comment that just came in about bricks. He said, "I'd never say those sets are ugly, because back in the time as a kid, the imagination did the rest." And that is like could not be any better of a statement. I don't think.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's what these did.
Yeah. If you were to start and putting logic into things today, you would just be like, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. But then, it was gold. It was, this was it. There was no getting any better, because this is where it was.
Yeah. And it's phenomenal.
Yeah. And it's funny because if you look at the design of how builders are built today, because the changing of pieces and the different types of pieces that are available, the same designers who built these sets then would have probably come up with something completely different, because a lot of these sets were built the way they were because they only had so many pieces to work with and specific types of things. And that's why a lot of these sets had that look and feel, because that's all they had to work with. But But yeah, they're classic. One last thing to point out, great play feature on the all-terrain vehicle is that when you back the rover up to the command pod there, when you bring the tailgate in, there are slopes on the back of that lock into the slopes and actually lift up the command module to lock it into place so that the rover can then drive, and the legs of the pod are up in the air. And it's all done by bricks and hinges, and it's perfect. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a set today that has that play feature in it, and even today's parts. It's
yeah, and I mean, and it's even more impressive with the limited amount of parts that were out at this time.
Correct, exactly.
Yeah, definitely, I would agree with that 100%. All right, so moving on, we got the introduction of some yellow minifigs and minifig packs,
and
serious these came out a year apart, I want to say.
Yeah,
two, or maybe they were the same year and they were just different part numbers. And then more white on the ship.
More white on the ship. It's interesting because we get white and blue now. It's kind of like a thing, but yet we still got white and gray as opposed to white and blue. And again, trans blue canopies instead of trans yellow. So we've definitely made that shift from the trans yellow canopies.
Yeah, and the let's see, the trans blue, the dark trans blue was a lot of Space Police later on. Space Police 3 used that.
Yep.
Who else used that? Futron used that like religiously.
Yeah, Futron was definitely the trans blue mecca at that point in time. I mean, because we'll go into green. We'll go into green for a while here as we got going too, but the blues has little hints of blue throughout things. But yeah, once we get to Futron, then it's just all blue.
Yeah, this is when they start getting real wild with their the color schemes and what they're, because none of it really makes any sense. It almost, like I said earlier, it almost looks like they kind of wanted to separate and make factions, like different, team red, team yellow, that kind of thing. But they didn't, because they were still all featured in all the sets.
My take would be more on that somebody in marketing said we need to change colors. That would be my guess.
Or we need more colors.
Yeah. Or a designer said, you know what? I don't want to build my ships in gray. I want to do them blue and white. Now, I will say this, and this is kind of funny, because the earlier sets, the bases were blue and the base plate was gray. And it always killed me that you had gray ships on gray base plates. And to me, that's just a horrible design decision. I wish that they had made and we see through all the artwork and all the advertising that whatever planet they're on or whatever it is, whatever moon they're on, it's got this tan feel to it.
Yeah.
But yet they made the base plates gray.
Well, the crater plate was the moon plate, right? Technically. Right. And the moon is gray.
Yeah.
But they show most of the classic space sets in like a desert.
Yeah.
With no atmosphere. So it doesn't make any sense.
It can still be a yellow sandy desert. I mean, the fact that the moon is gray is because the sand is gray. But if it had been a different mineral, a different composition, it could have been tan instead of a gray. But I still wish those old crater plates had been a different color than the ships, because today we put gray moon bases on gray plates, and it's like it's just too much gray. It's too much.
Yeah,
gray.
It is. I agree.
But again, both these sets, both the Cosmic Cruiser and the Starfleet Voyager, have great play features because the backs open up and you can put the cargo in there or pop out the ship. Just good design. They may look wonky with all those studs up, but still the designers had a lot of play features involved with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you consider, even looking at the Cosmic Cruiser, like say we go back here and we look at the Moon Buggy, right?
Yeah.
Or the Space Digger or the Shuttlecraft, right? Those are definitely jumping up even to the Cosmic Cruiser. It's another level, right?
Yeah.
So, they're still fantastic. It's, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
On this next one here, I would have to say one of my favorite classic space is the mobile rocket transport.
It's a holy grail set.
That thing is gnarly.
Yeah. Even by today's standards, that is such a fantastic play feature set. The articulation for the wheels and
the movement, I can see that it's just wild.
It's just fantastic. The invert, we got another inverted canopy to use, but they went back to the trans yellow instead of doing the trans blue. The whole lift arm mechanism to drop the rocket off and down. It's just a beast of a set. And it is one of those, if you ask a kid from that era, what's a set you did or didn't have, or what do you remember? This is always on that list of classic space sets.
Yeah. I noticed that hinge is the old classic hinge.
Correct.
That is super, super stiff.
Yeah. And it's also where you can actually take and pop the pin out. It wasn't like today to reconstruct that plate hinge piece, you would use a Technic pin in there, and that's how they would do it. But this one was one that came together. Yeah. And again, you could take it apart, but and later on, when we get into M-Tron, there's an alt build where the alt build on the back of the box is that piece where you take it apart and you flip one of the pieces and you put the pin back in. So even though it was never told you could do that, it was one of those things you could do.
You can.
Yeah.
Side note here, the 6823 surface transport, I had that set.
I think we all had that set.
Well, it was a cheap one.
It was a cheap one, but it's a classic. I love those tires.
Yeah, the old balloon tires.
Big balloon bubbly tires. That is one of my top 5 favorite Lego pieces of all time, are those big balloon tires. The fact that they used them in different ways, where you could either pop them on an axle, or you could use the 2x2 plate with a rod and the red wheels on it. You could pop it on there, or you used an actual Technic axle and slid them on there instead, because we see that in the surface.
Yeah, they've got the little star on the outside edge where you can slide the Technic axle through.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. It's nice. Nice touch.
Very versatile tires. I wish they would do a tire like that again. It was so awesome.
Well, I mean, you can get pretty close, and I've got just about every variation of tire laid out over here on my table, because I'm building multiple space things right now too, and I can get pretty close to it. It's not the same, but I can get pretty close with the right color combos.
Yeah.
From wheel to rubber,
So, the Space Patrol and the Sysmobile. The Sysmobile is a weird. It's just a parts pack. I look at that. The Sysmobile is just, hey, I got a bunch of pieces that I want to do with, and I'm just going to do this. And somebody said, sure, let's make a set out of it. It's one of those wonky things. We've got gray mineral detectors, a stanchion that we don't really get to see the stanchion used until a couple sets later. But again, just it's a wonky parts pack is what it is.
Yeah, I love these parts.
And then and again, same kind of with the Space Patrol. It was like, here, we're going to give you some recolor on some things we haven't done in blue before. Here, let's throw this out there and get that into people's hands. It's
the thrusters in blue.
Yep. And the antenna as well. So
yeah.
And also the head.
That was just a regular antenna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I do have to make the comment we go do too far, is that, and I don't think you have it in. Well, let's go one more slide and see if you got it, and then we may come back. Let's see if you. Nope. All right. So go back.
Okay.
All right. So the Surface Explorer and on the previous slide, the TriStar Voyager.
Yeah. There
was one set, and I don't even consider it a set. So the fact that you don't even have it in here is completely fine. They combined those together as a superset, and they sold it in Germany. I think was the only place that it was sold as an actual set. And even when I think you got the set, it was those two sets combined in a box with another set of instructions to build this other wonky ship that is just, it is the ugliest space set of all time. And and again, trying to find the instructions is almost near impossible. Much less if you can find one in even decent shape, because it was only done as either a mail away in from some soap or something like that in Europe, or if you got them actually combined together in a set in Germany. So it's one of those weird little wonky.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't include the value packs or the super packs or anything like that. I just put the individual sets with their number as listed.
And Lego only does that 2 more times with the super instructions. They do 1 more in M-Tron and 1 more in Blacktron 2. Otherwise, they've never done it again. So kind of interesting.
All right. Well, we have this. I like this Galaxy Commander. It's pretty impressive. My only thing is the way that, I don't know what you called this piece right here. It's
Stanchion.
It's a support.
A support, yeah.
It looks like they're in blue, but they're hanging off the bottom of that wing with nothing attached to them.
Because they're supposed to be legs. They're legs.
Oh, they're legs.
Because that back section inside there. Now, all right, let me back up 2 seconds. This became the replacement to the Galaxy Explorer. As far as
I don't think you can replace it.
Well,
they tried.
I replace with the quote air quotes, because it's bigger. It gives you all that same feel, but not quite the same nostalgia. But there are a lot of people who will say for them, this is their Galaxy Explorer. This is that set that for us who were a little younger said the Galaxy Explorer was the one you had to have. This one became the next set you had to have.
Right.
One of the cool things about this set is that it's modular, because it comes apart in 3 different sections. You get a container section, which is similar to the Surface Explorer, where you got your little command module lab in the back. That back section that you're talking about, the stanchions coming down, those are legs that hold up the rear section, regardless of whether the pod is in the back or not. And then the whole front section, where the Classic Space logo is there up there on top, that piece comes up and is a hinge and allows 2 Technic pieces to uncouple to make the separation from the front and the back. So,
it almost looks like that back cargo bay area could almost be just like with the legs on it, could just be like set down, and it would look like a base.
For the most part, it can be. It can be. It's either like a docking section or a separate base section. You could do multiple different things with it. So just fantastic. If they had made this in blue and gray with trans yellow, it would be even better.
I would have to say, I mean, I like the fact that there's 2 buggies, number 1. They both have the balloon wheels. They both obviously have a different function. One's got a mineral detector and the other one has a hose. So I'm assuming it's a refuel type.
That's how I would look at it too. Yeah.
Thing. I'm not so sure that I like the original space landing plate, right? That in the light gray. I like the black ones.
Which we only got those in Blacktron.
That's those all came out a few years later, but I don't know how I feel about those. And again, like you said, we got this gray plate sitting in the desert. It's kind of weird.
It's always been a contention with me. It's always been wonky. It's like, come on. You could have done better. You could have done, but at the time they didn't have the palette of colors. So, but they could have, if they gave them to us in black, why couldn't they give us to them in tan or something else somewhere down the line? So,
I mean, I agree 100%. I would have to say one of the coolest space sets from Classic Space is the 6824, the Space Dart. That thing just looks cool.
It is. And the fact that it's modular, it's a little tiny set and it's modular. The fact that they use those clips, those 1x1 with a clip, and you swing them open and the little chair pops off as a little additional ship, which is kind of funky. I mean, you get this little thing and you just take off the wings. But this is also the first time we see the blue spaceman. So this is 1984, I believe. Yeah.
We're getting close to the end of Classic Space. We're on the 50% and up right now.
Yep.
But yeah, I want to say that was the first blue one.
Yeah.
And then the following year, let's pull that up here. We actually they didn't bring too many more blue in yet, not yet.
Yeah,
but
not
all
yet.
the colors have shifted like entirely here.
Right.
You know, we've got a little bit of the gray, but most of it's blue and white.
Correct.
Definitely
I
kind of like the space supply station. I kind of like it.
For me, the space supply station, and again, I don't know if it's just because it's a base or what, and it just, you know, it's a big set, it stands out. It's got a crater plate because those crater plates were coveted. They still are to this day. They use the blue stanchions again. It kind of has this like drive-in feel to it because the rovers can go underneath.
It does.
And then the fact that you got these little flyers that dock on the roof section.
Yeah, on the top. Yeah.
It's such a fun just set to look at in general. And then it's just jam-packed with play features as a kid to play with. So,
you know, I never really put that together that they were, you know, the little flying jobs or just land right there on top.
Yeah. I mean, and the way they situate, they rest perfectly. I mean, you can take the set and they'll just sit right there because they're locked in, which is great.
They're locked in, by studs on the bottom of the radar. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The TriStar Voyager is kind of an interesting little build. It's kind of it's odd. It reminds me of one of the Futron sets. And I have it over here on the other side of my table.
It's that whole iconic. We're using those, and I love those. The modified 1x2 plates with the big frame that comes out of the front of it to go.
Yeah, I like those too. I love those too.
It's another one of those classic space parts that you just can never go wrong with. The fact that you get so many of them in blue in this set is awesome. We also get rare blue space guns in that set as well. So it's again, and also we also get white rocket tail fins again, which is also not a common piece and at that time. And again, this was also another little set that became modular because the back section opened up and the little chair comes out. For whatever reason, somebody was hip on making space chairs. I don't know why.
I mean, I like the one that had the 2x2 set of studs with the extension that went back so that you could put them in with the air tank.
Yeah, well, and those are introduced in here. If you see in the Star Patrol launcher, there is what they refer to as, and I think even in Brickling Studio, they call it the space chair.
Well, I mean, what else would you call it?
Exactly. Because that's the only piece that you can actually rest a figure in with the air tags on to have them be in a chair scenario. Yeah. So just awesome.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, from seeing one of your videos prior, isn't this Robot Command Center one of your favorites?
It is and it isn't.
This thing looks ridiculous.
It is completely ridiculous. And everybody who I've ever talked to about the Robot Command Center, it is either their favorite set of all time or it is their least favorite set of all time. It's usually nowhere in between. It's either you love it or you hate it.
What a weird...
It is such a weird set. Again, this is, and we see this a couple of different times throughout the classic sets. Some designer just said, I'm going to try and cram as many of these new pieces into this set as I possibly can.
Right.
And that's what this set feels like. It feels like I'm going to cram all this stuff that I have available to me and I'm going to just go crazy with it. But at the same time, though, having built this set, it is fun. If I was an 8-year-old building this set for the first time, it would have been sliced bread because there are so many cool things. The little rover locks into place in the bottom. The little flyer, the wings come down and it locks into place inside the middle section. The fact that the rocket actually rests in the back, and then you got these wonky arms, you got these canopies that you're opening up and doing whatever. The inside is got a little command center. We get a black classic space figure.
Yeah, I was gonna say, make note of the black guy.
Yeah. I didn't have this one growing up, but I did have both the lunar rocket launcher and the uranium search vehicle. Lunar rocket launcher, those black hoses, Gotta love them. The Lunar Rocket Launcher has a harken back to the Alpha 1 rocket base by and also the original mobile rocket launcher. So it's kind of, we've got the whole rocket feel going on, the satellite tip, that red classic shield that you were pointing out earlier that we saw in trans.
Yep.
Now we're seeing trans red. The uranium search vehicle, one of my favorite sets of all time.
Yeah, that one's a cool one.
That was, I think I mentioned this last week when we were talking. If I said what was my favorite set in 1985, well, I'm going to say it was the set from 1984 because this was it. So many great pieces crammed into that. The bubble tires used on the axle. We've got
double wide too.
Double wide, trans yellow and blue. It's just the black and the white figure in there. I just love this set so much. I can't say, about. I've even taken this set and I've Santa'd it a couple years ago. I took and redid the whole thing in red and white with a Santa Claus space guy and 2 elves in the back with toys.
That's cool.
Just an awesome set. Just an awesome set.
We've got one somebody commented in here, the robot command base. Peter N is saying it looks like the boss from Star Fox Super NES.
Yeah.
But I still love that it comes with a black spaceman and the command center.
Yep.
It is cool. The black spaceman in pristine condition is extremely expensive.
Yes, he is.
Even for whatever reason.
Yeah. And even like his helmet is not cheap either.
Yeah.
In comparison to other helmets for whatever reason.
Well, it's because most of them from that era look like this right here.
Yeah.
And they're broken.
Well, I think the black one didn't come in the old style. I think by this point in time, we had switched to the new style helmets with a thicker chin strap. But again, I don't know why, but his helmets are ridiculously expensive for whatever reason. I've never looked into why in comparison. Like he didn't like, because you would think that the policemen had those helmets too. So why would they be so rare and uncommon? But
that's true. The city policemen did have those helmets. They had them in black and white. They did both.
Yeah. So kind of strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for me, by this point in time, we are in the golden age of classic space at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Lunar Rocket Launcher. That's a great set.
It is.
Okay, let's move on here. We've got just a few more here to get through. So we're doing good on time.
Cool.
Intergalactic Command Base.
Again, what I don't know. You slap it on a crater plate, I gotta have it. I mean, I mean,
yeah.
But again, it's so cool because you got all this play feature going on, all this trans yellow with the blue. You've got a flyer, you've got a little rover type thing, you've got plethora of minifigures, you've got a rocket. My favorite play feature on this is that the canopy opens up on the command base so that you can slide the rocket in with the satellite on top. Why? I don't know, but it's a neat play feature.
Yeah, so it's like the canopy opens up and it would slide in maybe under canopy to be worked on or
however it's whatever it's going to be. The big 6x windows that we've only seen a couple of different times. This one's got 2 of them in there. The inverted brackets, tons of those red radar dishes, hoses. I mean, it's just a great parts pack in general.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a base that actually feels functional because even though, like you were saying, like on the command center back in 78, that the whole side was open. It's a garage, down here in the south
with a broken door.
At least at this point in time, they're adding more windows to kind of give you the illusion that there's an inside. As without there actually being a door, but it just kind of gives you that more of a feel of being enclosed. So,
Alongside it, the Astro Dasher is a cool little set. The Surface Hopper, I really like that build.
The great thing about the Surface Hopper is those trans yellow hoses.
Yes,
and then you got the trans red rocket fins along with the gray rocket fins for just a small little set. it's got some valuable pieces in it.
Yeah. I only have 2 of the trans yellow hoses.
Hoses, yeah.
I only have 2 of them.
They're not common. They're definitely not common. Again, between even the Astro Dasher, the Surface Hopper, and the Space Sledge, it's a chair with a rocket slapped on it.
It is. It is. It's like Tim the Toolman Taylor jumped in there and said,
yeah, exactly.
Let's put this giant thing on here and take off. Pretty cool little sets, though.
Yeah.
I like the simplicity of the Surface Hopper. How it uses the modified plate with the 2 cans on each side that are offset.
Yep.
With
another classic space piece in general.
Yeah, with the little rocket part on the bottom.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's great. I think it's cool. I like it. It's simple. I mean, there's probably like what, 12 pieces in that,
give or take. I mean,
maybe 15.
All 3 of these sets, are maybe 20, 25 pieces tops, and they're fun. They're fun for being such a small piece count. Even if it has a little ridiculousness feel to it, it's still fun for a small amount of pieces.
Yeah, I enjoy the little brick built droids that they put in these,
and we'll see the droids evolve a little bit as we get through the next couple of years, and that was a great thing when they started doing that. I totally glad you pointed that out, because I love all the little droids. They're great.
Yeah, so this was one of the first ones in the Space Sledge that was memorable.
Yeah.
And it's they all seem to use the Travis brick one way or the other.
Yeah. The Travis brick and those I don't even know if they listed as an arm or they call it a wrench, but
it's I'm
I'm
not sure what it is, but it can be used multiple ways.
It can be used multiple ways, and it in itself is also a classic space part that stands out in everybody's head as being like, hey, where did you see this part? Classic space. That's where the part comes. Yeah.
Yep. All right, cool. Moving on. Bunch of more little sets.
And see, this was that era of let's give you a bunch of little sets that are affordable and just flood the market with these fun things. There is your trans yellow hoses on the Cosmic Comet. Lots of trans red in that. Just so much fun.
Yeah.
Again, it's wonky. We're out in the open, but we're getting rid of the steering wheel, and we're going to use antennas as levers to fly with. The Xenon X-Craft is this close from being a perfect set, because so many sets we get there's exposed space, and there's just a little ledge underneath
the wing
canopy that's exposed. Otherwise, it would be completely encased. Now, the Walker Astro Grappler, those 2 canopies come up, and he's locked in there. He's airtight and good to go. That, again, is one of those iconic sets because it's so wonky. It's like you've got this Walker function, which works. I mean, it slides. They're great use, Joe, those 2x2 turntable plates.
Yeah, it's the same base as the Blacktron Alienator.
Yes, same functionality. To move those legs, got the red canopy or the trans yellow canopy, more trans yellow hoses, Black Spaceman. That actually was when I started doing my bucket list of collecting on my classic space sets. That was the set I found in a bulk buy. I was doing some sorting for a guy, and he was paying me in brick to sort for him. So I got to keep 10% of whatever I found while I was sorting. And that set was in there. And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna start collecting them all.
Okay.
And all the ones I missed.
I'm going to go ahead and put this out there on our show. We have this thing that if you hear it on the internet, it must be true. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and say that 6882, the Walking Astro Grappler, is the first member of Blacktron.
Ooh.
Because he's got the yellow lens, the yellow hoses, he's dressed in black, and he's using this arm to pick up whatever he's picking up. And, and it has the same mechanism as the Alienator.
Yep.
That's the first member of Blacktron. He's the commander of Blacktron 1.
He splits from the faction and goes rogue, and we get Blacktron.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that. That. I love it.
2 or 3 years later, and he shows back up with this whole fleet of trans yellow hoses, and everything's in black.
It works for me. I love it. I love the idea.
Something else I wanted to note about this slide: the 6872 Xenon X-Craft.
Mm-hmm.
That droid and the little white man, obviously featured down in the bottom corner of my video, is featured on the 1985 catalog cover, and that image to me is just so nostalgic. I love that vertical image, how they did the slices on the cover of the book. I just love it, and I had to use him in the corner of my video, so I put them together, and away we go.
I got to look something up to see if I'm right or wrong, but if I'm not mistaken, I believe that is also the same droid that they did. There was a GWP. They did it for Space, Castle, and Pirate, and it all happened like within like a year or so. That they released a little box as a GWP, and I want to say that's the exact same robot.
Yeah, I mean, it might be. I mean, I've got him right here. It's a very simple build.
Yeah. Let me see here. I'll pull this up. It's slightly different. They changed his color. So I don't know if you can see on this. But that was the
it's a black version.
It's the black version, and they gave him a trans yellow dot for his head. But yeah, that same style, and we see him a couple of different times as we go through.
Yeah,
kind of that quintessential classic little robot. Before we slip away too far on this, the Space Dozer, we got that old light gray canopy to use as the front end. This also has a black pickaxe, which I believe is one or two only sets that had the black pickaxe. It's again another one of those uncommon and expensive pieces that comes from a classic set.
Is it the actual classic the actual classic pickaxe?
Yes. Yeah, the bigger one in black, and comes in there, and it just clips on the back. It's not even like they show it to you. It's clipped on the back side of it. It's fun.
You don't even see it in the cover image of it.
The interplanetary shuttle, again, a wonky shuttle.
That thing is weird.
It's just wonky. You got all these. He's got this detachable cargo hatches in the back. I do like the big radar dish on the bottom to be kind of like the pseudo mechanism that's where how it's flying. But again,
that's how it hovers.
We couldn't get a classic space logo to put on that 2x2 tile or 2x2 slope brick. We got to put a computer screen facing outwards. I don't know.
Yeah, facing forward.
It's wonky.
It's
wonky. The crater crawler, however, is again another one of my favorite little rovers. The space chair pops off, so it's again it's a little set, but it's modular. And again, my favorite big chunky rubber tires. Gotta love it.
Yeah, bunch of great little sets, man. Moving on here. We got some more gray.
More gray.
That Gamma V laser craft has got another variation of the classic space robot.
Yep.
Using this as the body part.
Yep.
Right there.
Which again, for me, is a classic space piece. I mean, I don't even know where else they used it, but that was always in classic space sets and used as robot bodies.
And then something else too that I noticed is the FX Star Patroller has the black version of this that you were just showing with the yellow dot on the eye.
Yep.
So that's fun.
Yep. Little nods here and there. Again, this was like the last. This was me getting close to my dark age. Was right here. This is when I was reaching that age where Transformers and G.I. Joe were becoming competition for Lego. Star Wars figures and stuff like that was all becoming a contingent of what was I getting for Christmas and birthday.
Right.
But I think the Gamma 5 was probably an Easter gift. And I know the solar power transport was a Christmas gift because I was at that age where I got to pick out what I was getting for Christmas. And then my mom would wrap it and somebody else would give it to me. This was the first time we didn't have a base. The solar power transport was the big set this year, as opposed to having a base. So
That thing is a pretty cool set, though.
It is a phenomenal set. It's actually, I only had 8 sets growing up that were Classic Space, and this was one of them. So I still have my original along with the Gamma 5. I have since acquired 2 more solar power transports because it is such an iconic and awesome set. And I was lucky to find 2 of them in different buys. That thing has so much modularity to it just in its base form. Not talking about alt builds and this and that. It just the fronts, the front and the back section can come off. You can stick them together and they become their own little rover, or you can pop off the top section with the stanchions, pop them into the back of those pilot sections, flip the wheels, pop them underneath, and now they become flyers. The mobile lab in the middle there, it's got sections that swing down to make it where it stands with one wheel on each side. It's just, there's so much play feature packed into this. It's awesome.
Hang on, Dana. I can't get past the fact that you have 3 copies of that. I love that you're telling me everybody how this works, but are you willing to come off of one of those?
That would be like asking me to let one of my children go. I just can't.
I mean, how many children do you need?
Well, I've got 5 cats, so if that gives you an indication.
Okay, you got me beat. You got me beat. I've only got 3.
So, I mean, I've mentioned that I've gone through and I've gotten all the Classic Space sets, and I thought that when I did that I'm like, all right, I don't need multiple copies. But then when you find a bulk buy, or when you find some Facebook Marketplace and they're like, hey, we've got all these sets in here, and I think, oh, in my head, well, I've already got those. I guess I can sell the duplicates.
I just tried to buy one, and you don't want nothing to do with it. You're like, you're not taking my kid.
Exactly.
I mean, that was the analogy that you kicked back to me just then.
Exactly. I have not been able to sell any duplicates. I can't bring myself to do it. I don't know. Maybe in the future that could happen. Maybe if I downsize at some point in time. But for me, because for me, it's weird. When I think about when I was a kid, you didn't think about having multiple copies of a set.
Yeah.
And it would amaze me when I would find people, and they were usually kids in higher income brackets than my mom and I were in. And then you would find out, that, they got multiple copies of a specific set, but it was because they were gifted to them. It wasn't something they thought in their head, oh, I want multiple copies of this. They just happened to have gotten them as gifts from multiple people. And that's how they wound up with them. Today, it's more common for you to think, oh, I want multiple copies of a set because I want the pieces to build something else. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of a weird concept.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave out and forget to talk about the fact of the Gamma 5 Lasercraft. Is another favorite of mine. We got a trans yellow radar or antenna in that one. Again, not a common piece. I think the trans yellow antenna only came in maybe 2 or 3 sets. This being one of them. The fact that the front section is modular, comes apart. I love those big quarter round cargo container pieces. We see them in the solar power transport in gray. We see them in this one in black. Just awesome, cool pieces that we don't see used very much. Again, all 3 of these sets are modular. The command section pops off from the back. The droid will fit into the little cargo section. You got to take him apart, but he'll fit inside on the Gamma 5. The FX, the rover, and the droid will actually fit in the trunk, which is kind of cool too.
That's cool. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, that droid from the solar power transporter is the same build as just the black one and the gray one that I was just showing. Just in blue. Colors. Yeah, just different colors.
Different colors.
I'm going to be like, for a week now, I'm probably going to be obsessed with building all of these variations of droids in as many colors as I have like on hand.
I applaud that, and I look forward to seeing
just to put them, classic space droids and have like 20 of them.
Yes, I look forward to seeing that.
That's cool. All right, cool. Let's move on here. Again, here's just a vomit of a bunch of little space sets.
Yep.
All over the place.
So the first thing I got to point out is that we get in the Starfire 1, we get another blue figure, but that front section is a different piece. It's not just a sloped brick anymore. We now have we have snot on the side of it, and there's
that's a space piece as well.
Yeah, but we see it used later on more in like race car sets and stuff like that. But I believe it starts here, which is interesting.
Yeah, it makes a good jet
find,
ski as well.
Yeah, but what's interesting is if you look at the Starfire compared to the scooter below it, they're both using a nose cone section of the front, but the scooter is using a hinge brick to create its snot effect, where on the Starfire, I believe it's a 2x2x2 bracket that's holding that in place. I think. I can't remember.
Well, no. The front of that original space piece has 2 studs on the front.
Yes, you're right.
Already.
You're right. That's right.
And then it has 4 on each side.
Yeah, it's the snot on the side and also on the front. So that was a game changer too, because we really hadn't seen that before. So that was cool.
Yeah, that was a cool piece. I had a lot of those. And I know that, I mean, I didn't get them from space. A lot of them came from town.
Right.
Because town used that piece quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I do like that piece. I don't think I've seen one of those in my current collection right now. But I'm familiar with the part.
So the interesting thing, and I think this is the first time we see it, because I don't remember thinking about it in the slides prior, but if you look at the space probe and the Starfire, we now have this new wonky piece that they're using as the controls.
Mm-hmm.
It's a plate.
That's a space piece too.
Yeah, it's a plate with like a headlight brick that comes out the top of it with a piece that kind of comes over.
And it looks like it's got 2 little buttons on it with a stud. There's like an open stud and 2 little buttons.
2 little sides. We see this used from here forward in lots of space sets through different themes going forward. But just so much fun. The Lunar Scout is again one of those things where I think somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to try and cram as much parts into something because it's so wonky." And I think the Lunar Scout was a gas station like exclusive or something like that. If I'm not mistaken, somebody would have to correct me on that, but I believe that was one of those things where like you could get it at a Shell station or something like that.
Yeah,
it's funky like that. I forgot to mention that on the in the prior slide, the solar power transport was the first time, along with this minifigure pack here. See the white figure flying there with a little different jetpack as opposed to air tanks. On the next slide, we get that in the minifigure pack as well.
Yeah, right there on the yellow guy.
Yep, and also in the mobile command trailer, which in the mobile command trailer compared to the solar power transport, that white guy, you didn't get an air tank in there for him. That's the only thing he got to wear. So his jetpack and air tank was all combined. In the mobile command, you get air tanks and jetpacks for the 2 figures in there. So little variation. Again, they used that funky little piece I was talking about to be the controls in 4 different ones. And we also get the funky snot slope piece in there in blue. Lots of great parts through this whole era. Lots of great parts.
I like that they put 2 different droid builds in the space minifigures pack.
Yeah. And also that cool 1x2 printed tile, which again gets locked into as being a classic space piece, because
that becomes very very popular moving forward.
Between we get it in gray, we get it in white, we get it in blue, we even get it in yellow. And I think we even got a updated version in white just recently. So I think classic stuff.
I really like the Lunar Scout. It's simple. It looks like he's got it. There's a complete encapsulated cabin on that thing. It's got the balloon wheels.
Yeah, little section, but for the most part, it's enclosed. And it's also modular because that back section, Technic pin pops off, so it's 2 pieces.
Yeah, so if you're going to build anything that's like classic space, it's got to have Technic pins where you can take it all apart.
It's got to be modular. I mean, it to be classic space, it's got to be modular. It's got to be.
All right, cool. So we've got about 4 more slides here.
Oh, we knew this was going to. I didn't even realize we were almost at an hour and a half.
I know, but we're gonna move on here, and I put all these in the same one: the light and sound sets.
this is just one of those things where Lego decided, hey, we've got an idea, we're going to try it, and we're going to put out some sets, and we're going to see if it works, and we never see it again.
I know. They brought this out like this, and it was across the board. It was in boats, it was in trains, it was in town, it was in space.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
We only see it again slightly in Space Police.
Yeah.
And Space Police and Blacktron 2 is the only time.
Blacktron 2. Blacktron 1 did not have any kind of sound.
Didn't have any battery boxes or weird.
Yeah, and this was the classic one with the little 1x2 gray plate was the on button.
Yep.
And it was a big giant 4x8 by like 3 brick that held a 9-volt battery inside.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that Sonic robot is like a test pack. Here's some parts with some of these plates with these metal plates inside of them to do the conductivity for the electricity. I mean, it's such a wonky little set. They even give you extra parts.
Kind of ugly.
It's so ugly. They even give you extra parts in it because they know that you need extra parts to do anything with this. It was kind of like, here's a parts pack. We'll make it into a robot.
We're selling you a robot. We're giving you extra parts so you can change it immediately because we know it's terrible.
Right. Now, that all being said, the XT Starship has so many vibes and feel to the TriStar Voyager, the FX Patrol craft. It has that feel of earlier sets because even the front and the back are modular. They come apart. But again, it all centers around the monkey gimmick of the lights and sound.
But it looks good overall.
It does. It does.
The shape of it looks good. It looks aggressive. It looks like a spaceship.
It does, because it has a lot of feels to earlier ships. Now, the Sonar Transmit Cruiser, though, is almost like a precursor to one that's coming up. But again, it's like a box. And
it looks like it's the minivan of space.
It does. I will say there are some interesting build techniques in it, though, because the doors are actually canopies flipped around so that they create little ramps as they come down. So it's got some wonky kind of interesting things to it. The rover, however, doesn't fit inside. It actually connects to the back with a Technic pin. It's funky. It's funky.
Well, as long as you can attach it and take it into the living room, you're fine.
Exactly. I guess that works.
Right? You have to think of it from a kid's perspective.
True.
All right. Let's move on here. Back into the blue era.
We are back to blue, trans yellow, all sorts of fun galore. The first thing I got to talk about is Alien Moonstalker, because it's basically, at this point in time, The Empire Strikes Back has been out. So now we have a classic space. Yeah, we have a classic space version of an AT-AT. That's what it is. The Cosmic Charger feels like it could have been a city boat set, but we slapped some wings on it.
Yep. I agree with that too.
The Cosmic Fleet Voyager, which for a lot of people is a Grail set. I have two. Just going to point that out.
Well, it doesn't matter because you won't come off of one of them, so it doesn't matter.
But it looks and it has a lot of feel to the Lights and Sound version the year before, because it's a big giant box. It's modular. However, the rover does fit in back, and actually it does have a piece that slaps down to lock it into place. As far as parts go, the Cosmic Fleet Voyager is a phenomenal set. We get so many pieces in there, lots of trans yellow plates, windows, hoses, fins, antennas. Just a great set for a lot of parts. I'm not going to lie. I think the modular space transport and the mobile recovery vehicle are just horrible sets.
They're both ugly.
They are just ugly. They again feel like somebody sat down and said, here, I got some pieces. What can I make with these? They're just funky. Now, granted, they're modular, but they're wonky. Like the fact that the modular space transport, they make you think like it's hovering because of the way that the design is. But again, you would get caught on shag carpeting in a heartbeat. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible.
You would. And everybody had some shag carpeting. I mean, it was old. It was old at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
So
we had a comment. Marty, the Lego Party, said that was the Chevy Astro commercial in 1985. It drove on the rings of Saturn because it was so futuristic.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Now, I will say though that out of all these, the Moon Rover set, I love the fact that it's an articulated, it's got big fat rubber tires. We got those robot bodies in white, which are not common. So that is again one of those few sets that it came in white. And you got a little flyer to go with it, so it had some fun to it. And also, that Moon Rover has the trans yellow little mini dishes. That is a rare part that did not come in.
That is.
That I think it maybe came in 2 sets. Those trans yellow dishes. So
yeah, most of them are trans neon green.
Red and green. We got them both. We got lots of them in both red and green, but not very much in yellow. We eventually get them in trans blue too, but that's Futron.
Which, in the last 2 slides here that we've got, we go from classic space to classic space wants to be Futron.
Yes.
The box art changes.
Yep.
The style of build changes, and everything is white.
Yep. I mean, from my opinion, and because the predominant figures in Futron, you see mostly out of the Futron figures, they are the blue ones. That both the Strata Scooter and Polaris Space Lab, you swap out the figures, and boom, they're Futron sets because they just look and feel like Futron. Like you said, the background has been changed. We are in a complete transition period. Whether, what's the chicken and the egg here, whether it was the minifigure or the set color design or whatever it is, we are making that transition into a whole new world.
100%. This, the Polaris One Space Lab looks like you could set it right next to the Futron monorail and it's part of it.
Exactly. Now, what's funky about that Polaris Space Lab that makes me laugh is that normally we're used to seeing things on the crater plate and everything is contained within the crater plate and all around it. But this has pieces that sit out of the crater plate and they actually have little plates on the bottom to lift them up so that they're at the same level. And
but they're not at the same level
because
the classic base plate is thinner than the plate.
So it rests just slightly off. And that's why they've got to use those hinge plates to do that because they couldn't just have them sticking out because they wouldn't be able to rush on the floor. So it's funky, it's wonky, but it's again one of those sets that people see and they're like, I gotta have it just because of all the blue space.
The Strata Scooter has got that funky jet ski piece in white with the classic space logo printed on it.
Yep.
How great is that?
And the fact that they use it again in the Satellite Patroller as well.
Do they? Is that the same piece in there?
Same piece.
Yeah, it is, isn't
it? And the Satellite Patroller gives us that rocket piece in white, which prior to this we'd only ever seen in black and gray.
Oh yeah, the top piece that has the little fingers that connect around the studs.
Exactly.
Something else too is the old red stud with the metal bar on the wheel turns to white.
Yep.
Which is convenient because they just put that went all across the whole town.
Yeah.
Like immediately.
Yeah.
Which then transitioned into the plastic white that was on every vehicle in town.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've got the one more here of classic space. Again, lots of white. The only one that's blue is the terrestrial rover. That is another one that I had as a kid.
And is another one of those great sets just in general. Lots of great play features. If the terrestrial rover had those big fat rubber tires on it, would have made it perfect.
Yeah, it would have made it better for sure.
It would have made it better. That is the set that we get a blue tail fin with the classic space logo printed on both sides.
Yep.
It's the only set that came in, so it's another one of those uncommon pieces. It's not as pricey as I would have thought it would be. But it's, again, I think it was because it was a right price point as opposed to being only in a big set. So there was a lot of those sets that were produced, so they were pretty common out there in the wild to still find them today. Love it or hate it, I love the Spybot because it's, again, we didn't see, robots or we got little tiny brick built robots, but we never really saw. This was like the first time where we saw something bigger, and
Yeah.
because we didn't have the ball joints that we have today, we're using hinge plates to create and hinge
Arms.
bricks to
Yeah.
create articulation. For its time, it was a genius build for its time.
You know what it needs? It needs the bottom half of Wally, and then we just call it Johnny 5.
Pretty much. You could totally
What it
see
reminds
Johnny
me
5
of.
vibe come in there. Totally see
Yeah,
Johnny 5
that's
vibe.
the vibe for sure. Yep. The twin Starfire that has Futron written all over it.
Oh yeah. Well, because we're
almost there.
Yeah, I mean, again, swap out the figs. It's Futron. Those hexagon canopies are. I mean, this is the first time we see those.
Those are new. Those are new this year.
They have no. These are ones that have no axle hole in the top. So, because that becomes a variation of whether they have an axle hole.
Yeah, the original ones did. They were solid, weren't they?
Yep, those were solid. And we also got that cool sloped piece in the front with the classic space logo on it.
Yes, in white. That looks nice. Yeah.
So that was another one of those little nods that was kind of cool to have. And then of course we got it to round it all off. We got about to talk about the XT5 and droid, because if you see that droid and you're thinking, gosh, that looks familiar, it's because it's also the same droid that came in the new Galaxy Explorer.
Exact same.
And what cracks me up about this set in general, though, is it is a flying chair.
It is.
It is a flying chair. But still, just a great little, I would die today to be able to go into and find a little space set just like this in a poly bag, because I would just gobble them up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially nowadays. Yes, of course. To give the little space chair, some juice. It does look like it's got thrusters on the back and the bottom.
Yep.
And he's got this cool computer that he can just tap with his helmet.
It's
behind. I don't know what the hell the deal is with them. All the computers are behind them.
Yep. And what's also neat, it's kind of hard to see, you can kind of see a little bit, is that this set came with a walkie-talkie. Now, we didn't even talk about the fact that these guys have walkie-talkies and helmets in space. I'm just gonna put that little asterisk there, and we're gonna move on. But his walkie-talkie actually is designed to clip onto the back of his little space chair, whether it's just to add that antenna or that he can pull it off and use it whenever he wants to, who knows. But you very rarely saw, usually you got like a little flyer or rover, and unless they put a clip on to put that walkie-talkie, the guy would have to hold it. And we see that even going forward in other sets, in other factions. So the fact that it actually had a spot to clip on was fun.
Yeah. Well, we've hit, we're at about an hour and 40 minutes, but because we're here right now, I do want to bring up your screen image.
Okay.
And just let everybody have a look at this right here.
Yep.
Hang on here. It's popping up. So this is every set except for one, which was technically two put together.
Correct. It doesn't have the super set, which was the TriStar Voyager and the one of the rovers combined together. And I after I took this picture and had 5 different people point out that I was missing that set, I went back and I got a second copy of those too, so I could build that other set and have in my collection. So when I do a display, so this was 2.5 years in the making. I came out of my dark age and decided I was going to go back and get all the sets that I didn't have from when I was a kid, and plopped down, started parting things back together, finding pieces through my bulk buy scenario, where a guy was helping me, sort parts. So probably 50% of these were reparted back together, as opposed to just going on Bricklink or eBay and buying the set. I went through the painstaking task of finding the pieces to restore these sets back to their original glory.
I mean, there is no shame in that. I did that with the entire classic castle.
Yeah, no, that's the way to, because sometimes you can't find a buyer for certain sets. So the only way you can get it is by going out and finding the pieces and putting it back together.
Yeah. I mean, that's typically the way I do it. Like if I want if I want a classic set, I normally just download the instructions in the part list.
Yep.
And I'll go and I'll bricklink everything.
Yeah.
And I'll bricklink. I've got this thing where I don't buy old gray. I only buy light bluish gray. And if it doesn't come in light bluish gray, I might sub in the old gray. Right. But it's easier. It's easier to do with Castle versus, the classic space, because there's so many more intricate parts.
Right. I mean,
that weren't available,
Yeah. Yeah. Because there are certain pieces that only came in old light gray, and then they never produced them again.
Yeah. Got a question for you, James Westman. This question is for TroublesBricking. Which classic space set is perfect to put next to the new Galaxy Explorer?
Well, the obvious answer is the original Galaxy Explorer. I mean, that's the only thing you can put next to it, because you want to compare the two of them next side by side. And
I don't remember the names of them, but you've got the three different classic spaceships,
yep.
which are mimicked, and you have instructions for with the newer Galaxy Explorer.
Yep.
I would like to see all three classics and all three of the new models setting side by side on it in a display with a nice big classic space logo in the background and saying, this is Lego space.
Yeah. Actually, funny thing is, and I could send you a picture. I don't have the nice big classic space logo to go with it, but I did when I built all three of the new versions. I did do a photo with the three of them together with the new three. So because that has to happen. But I have my buddy Fazoom, who's actually doing our other stream. He actually went through, and not only did he build the 924 and 928 from the instructions, but then he went and built all the sets from 1978 and 79 in the Mike Pisaki style. So he has done those, basically the first three slides we did, he did updated versions in the new Galaxy Explorer scale of those sets.
That's awesome.
It is awesome to see.
Does he have that on Instagram?
I think he does. If he doesn't have it on Instagram, I know he's got it on TikTok, or he might even have it on YouTube. But I'm pretty sure he's got it on TikTok for sure, because he knows, he seems to find, for whatever reason, people either choose TikTok or Instagram, and I think he does TikTok instead.
Yeah, I hate TikTok.
I am with you there. I've got an account, but I hardly ever post to it.
Yeah, I'm an Instagrammer. But yeah, I'd like to see that. I mean, overall, the classic space collection is massive, and you're one of the lucky ones that has taken the time and obviously the money to have the entire collection, which is impressive. So this is me giving you a pat on the back for your hard work and labors and efforts. I know the path that you've taken to get this, because like I said, I've done it with Classic Castle.
Yep.
So, and I mean, I have specific factions, in the space that I like. And I do plan on collecting some of them, but I will never probably own all these classic space ones. I just can't see that happening.
It was a labor of love. And
yeah, for sure. What's
funny though, is that while I was in the process of this, because at the time I was bulk sorting for this guy, and I was finding, and I love, my other favorite theme is Mtron.
Mm-hmm.
So I was slowly piecing together Mtron sets. So by the time I had gotten here, I'd already finished collecting all the Mtron sets. Now, granted, there's a much smaller number involved.
Yeah.
But once I finished this and I had the Mtron, I kind of felt like a little postpartum depression of like, now what do I do? Well, I guess I'm going to have to get Ice Planet.
Yeah.
And then I guess I'm going to have to get Futron, because my wife gave me the monorail for Christmas one year. And I'm like, well, if I've got the monorail, I got to have the rest of them.
There's quite a few Futrons.
Now, again, not as many as Classic Space, but
no,
there was at least a good 2 years of waves in there. So at this point, I think I mentioned this last week, I now have everything from Classic Space up to Spirius and Unitron, and now I'm working on Explorians and UFO and Insectoids, because once you finish a theme, you feel like there's this loss. I need a new theme to collect.
I know how that is, and it's funny too, because when I was a kid, I liked all of them. I liked Town, Space, trains, boats, pirates, castle,
Yeah.
right? But now as an adult collector, I'm back and forth between castle and space, right?
Yeah.
So I've gone through that. Okay, what's next? Okay, well, I got through all the ice planet, right?
Yep.
I've gotten through all the Blacktron. I'm working on Futron. Of course, now I've got all the castle stuff.
Right.
I've got every castle set, right? But I'm working slowly on my space collection because they're two of my two favorites is castle and space.
And
far.
it's funny that because you said that you can't see yourself going through and getting all the classic space ones because it feels like an insurmountable task to try and get there. But it just happens over time with some of these things. And because I originally said, I'm only going to collect up to the original helmets with visors. So once they started changing things beyond that, I'm only going to go up to that point. But then once I got it all, I was like, all right, well, I've got a couple of insectoids. What would be the harm of getting the rest of them, right?
Right. I mean, exactly.
So it just starts to, it perpetuates over time. And I think also part of it too is that there are so many newer big sets that they've been doing that are geared towards adults and this and that are high dollar value that I could or couldn't care whether I had them or not. But for me, going back and getting and restoring a set that's 20 years old, there's something to that. There's something.
I agree.
Yeah, there's something about restoring a set that hasn't been put together in 10, 15 years or longer. That there's something about bringing that set back to its original condition that just gives you a warm feeling inside. So
yeah, no, I agree. I'm the same. I pick and choose my newer, expensive adult collector sets.
Exactly.
Because I've kind of got this. I've got this constant like Bricklink thing where I get 2 or 3 packages every couple of days where it's just I just needed some parts. That's for this. I'm gonna build that later.
Oh yeah, I got a small bag of crystal meth in today. So
yeah, see, I'll get random bags like this where it's just like a bunch of yellow and trans red. Obviously, we all know where that's going. It's
exactly.
Going to Blacktron.
Exactly.
It's going to Blacktron. Something too. Just because we talked about NASA last week. Okay, there is a Kai Ninjago set. Kai's like Ninja Car Racer or whatever that just came out.
It's the tires, isn't it?
With the tires.
Yes.
Now, I bought 4 of those at the Lego store yesterday because I needed to build the rover.
Yes.
So those look so much more accurate on the Mars Curiosity rover.
They do.
Way better. It's almost identical to the photographs.
Yeah, it is.
So I had to point that out because we had just talked about NASA.
And now you've given me the reason that I'm going to probably do the exact same thing. I need to do that.
Well, see, I bought 4. So I used 6 tires of the 16 that I have. So I've got 10 more of those same tires. I think they're going to end up in the Blacktron bin.
Ooh, that's a worthy place to put them. That's a worthy place.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
Yep. Sounds good.
We got a few comments. I just want to address a few people, and then we will wrap this up. I'm sure that both of our wives are ready for us to get off of here.
Yeah, probably.
Brick Stash is saying the UFO is one of his favorite space. I agree. It's one of my favorites too. I have a few of the sets. I have all the wing parts that are printed for it to complete it, but I haven't got the rest of the parts to complete the series. Peter N. Have either of you purchased insurance for your Lego collection? If so, if so, any suggestions on services to use? Peter N. My security on my Lego collection is I have cameras in both corners of my room connected to my phone, and I've got an AR-15 loaded right over here. I've got the 45 clip, right? So I'm well protected. I don't need insurance.
I've heard this discussion from other people.
Yeah.
And I've never gotten a good answer either because, it's not so much of my worry, because my wife is always concerned about if we have like a guy coming in to service the furnace or or a bug guy coming through. And because anytime somebody walks past my office, it's an immediate, whoa, they got to stop. They got to take a look. And she's like, why are you, I mean, these people now know where we live. Da, da, da. I'm like, no, these guys are bonded. And they're, I'm not as concerned about that. I'm not concerned about somebody coming in and stealing my stuff. However, if my house were to catch fire, this would be a giant smoldering pot of burnt up PVC. And I know that there are people who have done insurance for art collections and this and that, but I mean, how do you quantify this, and how can you justify the premium that you might pay to qualify all of this value? It's a tough.
Well, I think honestly, the way that works is you give an estimated value to what your collection is, and then you pay that monthly premium to have that. It's no different than life insurance, right?
Okay.
You want 200,000 in coverage. This is what you're going to pay.
Right.
And that's kind of your ballpark. Now, I would think that you would be able to do that through any insurance provider, especially the ones that insure, like when they put like the antique plate on a car.
Right.
It's the same concept, right? I mean, there's art collections. This would be considered an art collection type thing. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's people out there, and I mean, I'm not trying to give anybody the amount of Lego that I have, but I could buy a new car if I sold everything. I could buy a new car and pay cash for it.
Oh, I'm probably sure you could buy a classic fully restored car.
Yeah.
or maybe even multiple cars.
Yeah, multiple cars. I mean, and there's guys out there that make my collection look like it's nothing.
Right. I mean, right? I know,
so who, I mean, I would say you could just check with pretty much any insurance, but again, I'm out here in the woods in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And this road's real dark. You come up here doing the wrong thing, you may not go back out the other end.
Exactly. And again, it also comes down to that, what you get away the risks on, what are the odds of my house is going to burn down? I don't know, but is it worth me paying, $300-400 a month to insure it for just this collection? It's like,
right. I will say something. There was a guy in Germany. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. Somebody had broke into his house and stole his entire Star Wars collection, and it was like $60,000 or $70,000 worth of Star Wars stuff.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then there was like a GoFundMe, like he was devastated. Right. And they'd set up a GoFundMe, and he eventually got some of his stuff back through this GoFundMe. Like people were donating and like feeling really bad for him. Yeah. And like he was on a work trip, and somebody had snuck back into his house, probably like a service provider or something of this nature. Yeah. Right. But we're talking about Germany. All right. This is America. America works different.
Yeah. It's
right. I'm not bashing the Germans. Right. No. But I mean, the element of, hey, that's their stuff just doesn't work that way here.
My wife and I always joke about the fact that, I feel sorry for whatever nation decides that they want to actually invade the United States, because
that'd be bad.
It's not the military that need to be worried about. It's the gun carrying homeowners who will protect themselves.
Yep. I'm one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, I live in a very, suburban-esque area, but I'm still a pretty good stretch out from Atlanta. And yeah, it's very common to see people carrying around town, just because we're out far enough where you can, or where it's not uncommon. So I can see
it's legal.
Yeah,
it's legal. You can go to Walmart with a gun on your hip.
Exactly. I mean,
the waitress at the restaurant in town carries a pistol.
Yeah,
I'm dead serious.
Yeah, no, that's just it. I mean, I seen some foreign paratroopers coming into my neighborhood. They would not last very long. It's just
they wouldn't. Thing, so. But again, that doesn't really have anything to do with classic space. But yeah.
But it talks about being safe with your
I mean,
collection.
Definitely. You get up there in value in your collection. I would definitely look into insurance or some kind of a guarantee on your own person that could protect your collection for sure. Yeah. I mean, I've got the security locked down. We've got cameras up everywhere. They're motion detectors. When we leave the house, we know if something moves in our garage. We know if our cat jumps from the floor to the bed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's what you got to do. You just gotta weigh those things out.
It's once you have cameras set up like that, it's one phone call. You call your neighbor, and my neighbor will come down here, and he's got more guns than I do. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So it's no big deal. But yeah, I mean, ones that are not in that, I would say antique collection, art collection would be your world there to get that set up.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, well, I guess that was another video of Let's Talk About Lego with Dana, TroublesBricking, the classic space guy.
Thank you again for having me on. I will always talk Lego, and I will even doubly talk space all the time. So I'm glad.
Well, I tell you what I will do. I will build my droids. That's already in the making. I'll make sure to post a picture to Instagram and tag you and let you know that I got them done, and I'm proud of them. Jason will be back here maybe even this next week. But while I've got you here, Dana, I do want to bring you in when Jason and I are back live at some point in the next month or so.
Yeah.
How long do you think it's going to take you to get all of your classic space sets rebuilt for the babies? Because I want to bring you in and I want to talk about that when you have them done.
I've got a deadline of June.
Okay.
To try and get them done. That's a pretty big task, even in that, because I'm going to Brick World in Chicago, and that's the middle of June. So my intention is to try and have them all done by then. But as I sat here and we went through all these sets tonight, I'm thinking, am I going to be able to get them all done by then?
That's a lot. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe I can get him to pump that up to May.
How long I get through, or if I reach a point in time where I'm like, all right, that's it, I can't do any more, and I'm going to pause. So we'll see.
All right. Well, I'll keep an eye out on your Instagram. And again, thanks for joining me in on this classic space. I knew you were going to be the perfect person to talk to because you had built them all recently.
Andrew,
say that again. I'm not sure what happened.
Okay. Time to wrap it up.
Yeah, it's time to wrap it up. So yeah, I guess, I'll reach back out, and thanks everybody for joining in on this conversation. I know it was a long one. And we'll hopefully talk to you next week. All right. See you later, Dana.